Hey everyone, Alex here from WOKCommands.com, and in this video I'm going to show you a couple new useful features to the WOKCommands npm package, such as complete message and language customization, as well as the ability to set developer and owner only commands, such as a status command where only you or trusted other members will have access to run that command. So we'll start by looking at that. Here I have a very basic ping command that's just going to reply with pong. Obviously, I don't have to demonstrate this, it's very simple. However, what if I wanted this to only be ran through specific users? Well, if I go into Discord and I right click my user and I copy the ID, I could then go into my index file and we can then chain a new method here called setBotOwner. If you have a single ID, you could then pass in a string, but if you have multiple IDs, you can then pass in an array with different IDs here. Obviously these are the same, but if you had different ones such as developers or you're writing a bot with a friend, then you can add in multiple IDs here. Now to enable this for each individual command, first we can save this file, we can go into our command and we can say owner only is true. We can then save this, and inside of Discord, we see my tutorial is online, so I can then run !ping and it works. However, if I go back and I change these to, let's say, 5.1 instead of 5.2 at the end, so this is no longer my ID, I can then run !ping and it's going to say only the bot owner can run this command. However, if any of these are my correct ID that ends in 5.2, I can then run this command again, as you can see here. Next up is going to be complete customization over every single message, as well as the languages that you can translate the messages into. This also comes with a language command built in, where different servers who are using your bot will have the ability to customize what language your bot interacts with their server in without affecting other servers. This means that if you have a bot that is inside of a Spanish-only Discord server, it will send Spanish messages. However, in an English-only Discord server, it will send English messages. To demonstrate this, we can go to the WOKCommands documentation. A link to this will be in the video description. You can scroll down and we see language support right here. There's a few different categories I'm going to be going over. We can click on this main one right here. This will require a MongoDB connection to be present because it does save the language to a database. That way if your bot restarts, it still remembers what the language is. So with that said, I'm going to add one into my bot real quick. We can simply chain in another method, set mongo path, process.env.mongo URI. I can then save this, and going into Discord, I can use !language or !lang, either one, and it's going to say that it's currently set in Spanish in a Spanish message. If I were to say lang English, it's then going to say language set to English, and if I were to run this again, it's then going to say the current language is set to English. So again, this is per server, so if your bot is inside of a Japanese server, they could set their language to Japanese. Of course, all the message customizations and translations are up to you. You can customize the default messages when it comes to the actual bot itself, as well as new messages that you use, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So if we go back to the documentation, next we see storing custom messages and translations. This is going to require you to create a messages.json file, and if we look at this link right here, this is going to open messages.json from within the GitHub repository. We could then simply copy this, and then we can go inside of our project again and we can make a new file called messages.json. We can paste this in, and we now have access to all of the translations. Currently there's only English and Spanish because that's a test language I selected. I just use Google Translate here. So we can go ahead and save this, and we need to tell WOKCommands where this file exists. This is actually a new parameter on the constructor. So after features, we can then specify messages.json. This is going to assume the current directory. Because this is sitting inside the same directory here, this is fine to do. So now that we have that, we can actually change some of them right here. So here we see the top language not supported. We have English and Spanish, and let's go ahead and simulate the language not supported. So I can say !lang, and then test, which is not an actual language. This bot does not have support for test at this time. Let's say we wanted to add in a quote around the language, so it's more clear. We can then do that. And then I can run !lang test, and there's now going to be quotes around test right there. And if I were to run !lang Spanish, and then let's say we just replace this with test and saved it, I can then run !lang hello, which is not a valid language that's supported, and it's then going to just reply with test because that is the translation for this. I'm going to go ahead and Control Z all of this. You can go through this and see the current built-in messages. These are things that are going to be built into WOKCommands commands automatically. However, I will show you how to add in your own messages and your own translations here in a few minutes. However, there's two types of JSON formats here. If we go back into the documentation, here we see the direct messages, which is what we just saw. But we also see embeds which have a nested element. We can go back into our code and scroll down, and here we see the help menu, which then has different fields such as the title of the embed, select a category, commands, and so this is where you can actually customize the messages that are within the help menu within the WOKCommands commands, and future embeds that might be added will be using this type of syntax where there is an additional nested JSON object that contains different fields. This isn't really required to only be for embeds. You can use this for other things within your project if it makes sense to. However, this is something that is built in for this type of embed here. Going back to the documentation, we can scroll down, and here we see how to load message text. So if you have your own custom message, you can go ahead and use that, and we're actually going to demonstrate this here with this ping command right here. So inside of messages, I'm going to make sure that the direct messages and the embeds are separated. So right above the embeds, I'm just going to say Pong, and then inside here, I'm going to say English is Pong, and obviously this isn't Spanish, but I'm just going to say test, just as an example. So when we switch to languages, we can see a clear difference. I can go ahead and save this. And within ping, we now need to gain access to the WOKCommands instance. Our callback has a number of different parameters we can use. We can see those in the documentation here. If we scroll down to creating a command right here, we see all of them. We have message, args, text, client, prefix, instance. Instance is what we want. I'm going to simply copy this just to save time, and I'm going to paste it in right here. So that we have access to the instance, we can then gain access to the message translator. So instead of just replying with Pong, I'm going to say instance.messageHandler. We can then use the get method. We have to pass in a guild, which we'll define here in a second. We also need the title of the message. In this case, it is Pong. It is the uppercase. We can paste that in. And now we need access to this guild, which we can simply destructure from the message. So guild equals message. And now at this stage, we should be retrieving the actual message that we want for the title Pong within our messages JSON file. And the reason why we're passing the guild in is so it can gain access to the correct language set for that specific guild. Now, if you are inside of a direct message where the guild doesn't exist, it will just assume English. We can go ahead and save this, and going in here, I can then run !ping, and it's going to reply with test because we currently have our language set to Spanish, as we can see here. So if I ran language English, we can then run !ping, and it's going to now say Pong. If I were to come into messages JSON and I were to add in 2 exclamation points, we would then see that change immediately when I were to run ping, it now says Pong. So you can add in multiple other languages or other ways to translate things here. And because the system has been created, there was a change when it comes to the default global syntax error that you would normally chain onto the constructor. However, if we go into the documentation and we scroll down to global syntax errors, this has now been changed. We now define this in the messages JSON file. And if we go back into here, we could then scroll up to syntax error here. And then we see the type of syntax error we want. And it still has the same placeholders such as prefix, command, and arguments that it did previously. So if you were using the method, such as set syntax error that is now deprecated, you want to go ahead and move your message into your messages JSON file so you can then actually translate it into different languages, just in case servers that are using your bot are using different languages. Aside from this location, nothing else has really changed when it comes to the functionality. If we go back to the documentation, we still see that it's expecting the expected args within the commands, and all of that is going to be the same. In the future, all of the details such as expected args within the commands and the different strings that will be within the commands will be able to be translated as well, but currently this release does not have that. However, you can expect that somewhat soon depending on the time you're watching this video. One final note is that there are now events that you can listen to. The database connected event was already there, but now you can listen to language not supported. So if a server owner were to try and set a language to something that you don't support, then you can listen to this event, perhaps send a message to your own Discord, send yourself an email, log out to a database, whatever you want to do to be notified that this number of servers are actually looking to get this language supported. Perhaps I can look into getting that translated. You'll have access to the message, which will then give you access to the actual author who sent the message, as well as the guild, as well as the actual string that they tried to set it to. which is the second argument here as lang. And that's basically it for this update. If you have any more ideas, feel free to leave them in the suggestions channel within the Worn Off Keys community Discord right here, or leave a comment down below. There are a lot of suggestions in here. I will be getting to those soon, specifically regarding the Worn Off Keys commands package. I have a lot more planned for this, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching this Discord.js tutorial. If you want to learn more about Discord.js, consider clicking on the playlist you see on your screen now. If you need help, feel free to leave a comment or ask in the Worn Off Keys Discord, which can be found in the video description.